Welcome back to episode 341 of the Tallboy Radio podcast. And as we always say, who knows when it goes when the beer flows? Well, that beer is flowing in a very familiar direction as well. We've got one of our favorite guests back on the podcast. He's going to be sharing some more stories from his storied career. Now, when we first had him on, we gave a very sort of loose overlook of his career. And since then, we've broken down different stages that have been really important and pivotal. And tonight we're going to be talking about a stage which really helped to form him. Not only did it help him learn about the police force, but that key skill of being a boss. And that is a real challenge and a great skill to possess. So no gas tonight, as I'm afraid he decided he wanted to watch Croatia. Without further ado, let me introduce Vernon. Hey, welcome back.
Thank you, Adam. Bean, sorry. It's great to be back. And this segment follows the last two we did. The last two we did my time in narcotics and then in Manhattan North Narcotics. And now I'm going to get promoted. And if you remember, that made my life miserable. He's going to get one more shot, the bastard. But before we get into that, I was finally promoted to sergeant in August of 1971. And I reported to the police academy in my dress uniform. And at the time, it was nice to get promoted. And all of a sudden, the mayor started talking to me because he saw my awards. And he said, "Oh, young sergeant, I see that you've been in battle." I said, "Well, yes, sir." You know, as I'm talking to him, that little prick Murphy, remember Commissioner Murphy? He comes walking up and says, "Oh, Mr. Mayor, that has nothing to do. He has nothing." He spotted my name, and he spotted the DD on my collar, which means Detective Division. He hated detectives. So I said, okay, good. I got to meet the mayor. Well, the bottom line is there is an important transition going from cop to sergeant. And so I don't make any mistakes. I got a piece of paper here. When a cop becomes a boss, there's a psychological transition that takes place. You're now in charge of other cops. Since I had been a TPF cop and worked in specialized commands as a detective, I was always a relentless crime fighter, making arrests, conducting investigations, but doing so individually. Now it's not individual anymore. Now I was going to be a precinct sergeant involved in day-to-day administrative operations and supervising other police officers. How I conducted myself would set the tone for precinct operations that were unfamiliar to me. This would be a whole new learning curve. As a sergeant, your viewpoint changes from individual to a broader perspective of what the entire unit is doing at any given time. Your responsibility is greater as you are now directing the efforts of others. You also become a buffer between management and your officers, and that made me a perfect fit because I believe in protecting my troops. In my opinion, detectives usually make effective bosses because detectives, you have already been in a position of supervising other officers, superior officers at crime scenes, and directing activities, plus you're dealing with other agencies. So in that respect, I guess I had one leg up. So that being said, I go to the academy. It's a 2-week school for lieutenants. And the focus was on corruption because at the time they had the Knapp Commission. All these things were being uncovered that police were doing things they weren't supposed to do. And of course, I'm alien to that. And they defined it. They said, well, there's grass eaters and meat eaters. The grass eaters are people who take a tip or get a tip for doing something, or they get free this, they get free that. The meat eaters are the corruption, but the grass eaters support the meat eaters. I was like, this shit, grass eater, meat eater. What the hell are you talking about? Anyway, what happens is the lieutenant, and we don't want you joining any sergeants' clubs. So I raised my hand. What's wrong with joining the sergeants' club? I'm a sergeant. So what are you, a freaking wise guy, Geberth? I said, the rest of the class started laughing. Lieutenant, he doesn't know what you're talking about. He was never in a precinct. He's a TPF cop. So everybody got a good laugh at how stupid I was. I was about to find out what sergeant clubs were. So my first assignment out of lieutenant school was the 14th precinct. Today, that precinct is called the Midtown South Precinct in Manhattan. And the command in Midtown South, basically, we encompassed 42nd Street, the Empire State Building, the Garment District, the Lincoln Tunnel. Basically, we went from West 43rd Street North to West 27th Street South, from Fifth Avenue to the Hudson River. So it was a pretty big territory. And my first assignment will be as a desk officer. So I report to the precinct. I'm the sergeant. There's nobody around. So I turned out the platoon. They had looked at me like I was a freaking Martian. They don't do that. I said, well, you're doing it now. I'm a sergeant. You're cops. Open ranks, march. Da, da, da. So I said, well, they're going to catch on pretty soon. So it was kind of hectic, and it was nerve-wracking because I really didn't know what I was doing, and I'm trying to learn. I'm asking the other cops what the desk officer does, and you're responsible for radios and posts and this and that. And everything's fine. Well, my third night on the desk, the sneak attack. Remember that fucking captain that was trying to get me?
I do.
Well, at about 2 o'clock in the morning, I get a call to the switchboard. They asked to speak to the desk officer. That's me. So I pick up the phone. I want to report corruption on the 14th precinct. I'm going, oh my God, here we go. So I try to talk to them. What is it about? Can I help you? I won't give you my name. I won't give you my number, but I want to make a report and I'm going to follow up. I said, okay, that's fine. Terrific. So I do what I'm supposed to do. I call down to Internal Affairs. I get a log number. I make the entry in the book, and it's time for me to go to lunch. Now, let me tell you what a jerk I am. My wife sends me to lunch with a brown bag sandwich, right? Other people go into restaurants, not Vernon. I got a brown bag. I go to the Coke machine to get a Coke, right? I'm having my lunch when all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. In comes Sidney Cooperstein, the biggest fucking prick in the police department from Internal Affairs. Comes in, 2 captains and a chief. They grab the TS operator. They grab the desk. He signs across the bottom. Where's the desk officer? So cop goes to get me. There's a chief here. I said, okay, I'll put my sandwich down. Did you just receive a complaint? I said, corruption? I said, yes, sir. What do you do? I said, I followed the interim order, and I made an entry. He looks. He was pissed. He thought he had me. Let me tell you, I was a probationary sergeant. If I did not pass that test, I'd be back in uniform and be demoted. That was the last time that captain tried to get me to prick. You can see on that note what I said to you about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so just take a moment to realize when Sergeant Geberth was up against, not only did he need to be careful while performing his duties on the streets while assisting officers with arrest and investigations, he needed to have another set of eyes behind the scene to keep a watchful eye on those fuckers from the IAD.
Exactly. They were more dangerous than the people in the street. Well, I don't get to go on patrol until the following week. And again, it's midnights. So I go on patrol. And at the time, I had a driver because the sergeants have a driver. They're supposed to record entries. I'm on patrol and I'm going to jobs and there's nobody responding. It's like me. I'm the sergeant. And where's the other cars? All of a sudden, what comes in? A signal 1031 burglary in progress. Before I can get there, there are 3 other units at the location. When I arrived, these cops are helping themselves to shirts. It's a shirt factory. I said, what are you fucking guys, the burglars? Put them goddamn shirts back. What the hell's going on? I'm carrying on. They look at me like, well, when the owner shows up, he's a Jewish owner from the garment district. He couldn't believe, he said, Sergeant, do you want a shirt? I says, no, we're here to protect and serve. We're not here to take shirts. I said, those guys are finished. They're out of here. Well, as luck would have it, it's a small world. He's related to this Jewish contractor that built my house up in Rockland County. He's telling him the story about the sergeant who came in and started yelling at the cops for taking shirts. The contractor said, oh, that's Sergeant Geberth. He's no nonsense. So I'm establishing my reputation. But I'm not too happy the way the cops are responding. So what happens is the next night, I come in there, and don't forget, I'm on patrol. I see who's working and who's not working. I'm pretty smart like that. I throw all the handbags out of their cars. I put all young cops in. I said, when I call for a backup, I want to see a backup. I want to see cars. For the old time, you can't do that, Sergeant. I said, me, Sergeant? You cop. What are you going to do about it? Right? I had all kinds of cops responding back and forth. And one of our problem spots was 42nd Street, the 42nd Street diner. All the pimps would hang out over there. We periodically get a man with a gun, a woman being beaten, and this and that. So I decided, yeah, I'm going to clean this up. So I notified him, listen, we're going to hit that diner at 3 o'clock in the morning. Get ready. Go in with cars. Throw them on it. We locked up people for guns, grand larceny auto. I was really, I said, One order's back on 42nd Street. So I come in the next week, it's days. As I'm walking in, the lieutenant says, Geberth, come over here. What'd you do with those cars? Threw people out. I says, no, they weren't doing their job. You're not in TPF anymore, Vernon. Okay? Those guys bought those cars. I said, they bought the cars? In other words, like that grass eating stuff where they get money to tip people back and forth, that's all part of the club. I don't know that. So I said, okay. So no problem. I won't change the cars again. But now it's a Monday, and I'm the third sergeant. And the third sergeant on patrol, because day tours where you have all the administrative stuff. It's a Sunday morning, not Monday, Sunday. And one of the other sergeants comes up to me, says, Vernon, we have a little club here, and this is yours. And he gives me an envelope. I says, listen, John, I don't want to be part of any sergeant's club. You take that money, go back, tell him I'm not part of it. I'm not. He panics. Jesus Christ, I got a family, I got a wife, I got kids. I said, whoa, slow down. I'm not a rat. And I'm not an IAD. But I'm telling you, they're looking at these sergeant clubs. Do yourself a favor and watch out. Just make sure everybody knows I'm not involved. Well, he couldn't stop thanking me enough because he would have lost his job and everything. I don't want anybody to lose their job, but just don't involve me.
So just out of interest then, what exactly is a sergeant's club? Obviously, it seems like, everybody looking after each other's interest financially as well.
Well, the sergeant's club was basically the sergeant in the precinct. They would get money from the guys on the grass eaters, and at the end of the month, each would get an envelope with some cash. Or it was like the whole system was systemic. That's how it was. It wasn't that they were crooks or anything, but that was how they came into it. I'm a TPF cop. We don't do that. All right. So I'm setting the tone. So now it's Monday morning. It's the next day, and I'm Sergeant 3. So all of a sudden, I get a call. Sergeant 3, report to the 34th Street and issue a summons. So I asked my driver, what's this all about? Oh, well, the guy who has the store on 34th Street, he hangs his flags on the light pole, and it's an administrative violation. Now look at me, think of my background, right? Felonies, robberies, right? Administrative violation. I said, so what do we do? Well, his attorney's there, and we have to give the attorney a summons. I said, oh, yeah? That's not how it works. A summons is a privilege. As we pull up in front of the building, right, I jump out of the car, I grab my K-bar knife off the side, I jump up, I cut the flags down. Listen, motherfucker, you put the flags up again, I'm going to lock your ass up. Right? Here's your summons. This is a privilege in lieu of an arrest. I get a little crowd gathered. I get back in the car. I wasn't in the car 5 minutes. Beats. Sergeant 3, 10-2, forthwith. I go back to the precinct. The driver says, man, he says, that was really cool what you did, but this is a friend of the inspector who has the precinct, and he knows the attorney. I don't give a fuck who anybody knows. I walk into the precinct. Everybody's looking at me. The inspector Weinstein, Jewish guy, he got that job because it's the garment district, right? He takes care of all his lawnsmen. He's running around in circles. What is this motherfucker? What is this motherfucker? Get into my office. I said, yes, sir. He says, what? I says, I corrected the condition, Inspector. I corrected the condition. A summons is a privilege. He says, you're one of them TPF Nazis. I heard about you. You want to go back to TPF? I says, yes, sir. I have my own rabbi. A rabbi is somebody in the police department that can move people around and they make contracts and stuff. I go back to TPF. I was happy as a pig in shit. I'm back in the Bronx in the TPF cop. It was great.
Wow.
So yeah. So and ironically, I'm in a Bronx squad. Yeah. But September 12th, I just left that precinct. Right, September 12th, we get called back down. They want to clean up 42nd Street. They're never going to clean up 42nd Street, but this is the flavor of the day. So I come down with a squad and I look at some of the cops that recognize me from the 14th precinct. I said, listen, what's the problem locations here? I'm going to hit them. So that night, we hit all the problem locations, right? We rounded up the pros. We harassed the pimps. And basically, we did such a good job, they dismissed us, which what I would look at to be dismissed. On the way back to the Bronx, we're taking a shortcut through Central Park. We come up on an armed robbery. Two people with knives robbing tourists. We jump out of the car, we grab them, beat them up, take them into custody. I says, I can't get away from this stuff. So anyway, I'm a TPF sergeant. And we're back there. And all of a sudden, we're doing stuff in the Bronx, all those abandoned buildings I showed you, and all this, we're making arrests, and my driver's getting arrested back and forth. It's now October, and we bring us back for another detail at Times Square. Times Square was a busy place, so a lot of crime, and they're trying to make it so the tourists can walk down the street. But I go down, I'm going to go down and go after the pimps, because I can't stand these bastards for what they do. So I decided to set up on the at the bus terminal, because what they do, these guys are very clever. They hang out at the bus terminal, and they can spot a runaway like I can spot a perp. And as soon as they spot a runaway, they move in and they try to engage them. And we're going to get you something to eat. You have a place to stay. Next thing you know, the girls are in a stable as prostitutes. So I'm with my driver, and all of a sudden I see these two young girls walking down the street, and a couple of these superfly bastards walking behind them, the big hats, the pimp hats and everything. So I said to my driver, pull over next to these girls. Get out of the car. I said, good evening, young ladies. What are you doing? And they said, well, we just got off the bus, and those guys wanted to take us someplace to get a bite to eat. I says, no, you don't want to do that. I said, where are you from? They were from the Midwest. I said, tell you what. I says, you're going to go back to the Midwest. Get in the car. And these two guys are giving me badass looks, like, what you doing, motherfucker? I said, oh, yeah. I walk back, I take my blackjack, and I jam it into his nuts. He went screaming. The cop report, boss, the guy's running down the street screaming. He's holding his Johnson. I said, well, I'll teach him not to fuck around, okay? I made the phone calls to the girls, to their family, put them up in the YMCA. I think I saved two young ladies.
Yeah, I don't doubt you probably saved those two ladies there from probably a life of prostitution. And I guess, it's fair to say those two pimps really got probably, I know it's a bit rough-handed and tough justice, but sometimes I think situations need that. Probably something you wouldn't get along doing today.
No way. No, Alvin Bragg would be looking for me, the district attorney from Manhattan, who wants to let all the criminals go. He would think I was the bad guy. Yeah. So no problem. We're back in the Bronx, and I'm loving the Bronx, making arrests. My drivers are making arrests, and lo and behold, we get called again. You got to go to Central Park. I said, Central Park, what's going on? Tourists are being mugged in Central Park, so we want to stop it. We're going to put TPF into the park. So I bring my squad down there, and I'm talking to them. I said, listen, I don't want to be in Central Park. I says, this is bullshit. I want to get back to the South Bronx. I said, but these muggings, we got to stop them. And I'm not going to wait for some poor bastard to get mugged, and then we chase the mugger down and lock him up. I'm not going to do that. So I get some phone and say, boss, I have an idea. I just came back from Vietnam, What I can do is we can go into the trees, because they're coming in from home, and we put the war paint on, and we get into the trees. I says, oh, I like that idea. That's pretty good. So they get into the trees. When the muggers came into the park, the Central Park, these guys came out of the trees like banshees, grabbed them, right? Relieve them their weapons, trussed them up like turkeys, and if you come back, we're going to kill you. Third night, no muggings. I could not do that today, but it was very effective, because I believe that, bad behavior, there should be consequences. And there's nothing better than cops mugging muggers. So it was pretty good.
No, I mean, there's an old expression, isn't there? Fighting fire with fire.
Yes. But fire with fire. And that's what we did. We were the shock troops, and we did a good job. And it wasn't done to hurt anybody vindictively. It was done to stop crime. Plus, I'm working for God, right? So it's okay.
Exactly. No, but I think that's important, though. Do you know what I mean? To remember, sometimes you have to do the bad things for the right reasons. Do you know what I mean? To get things done.
Absolutely.
These people don't understand conversations. You can chuck him in, stick him in the clink for a couple of weeks. Sorry, he's out there. He's had his free meals, had his free drinks. He's back on the streets. The second you let him back out again, they're doing exactly what you took him in for. So sometimes
that's where we are today. That's where we are today in New York City. Nobody goes to jail. The cops aren't allowed to put their hands on anybody, and as a result, the criminals having a free run. This is how it should be, and this is how it was. I think my next thing, I was back in Times Square again because of the pimps. I did such a good job, they brought me back. Me and my driver pulled the guy over because his car is incorrect. Next thing you know, he turns out to be a big-time gambler from Harlem. He offers us $500, right, to let him go. I said, oh, yeah? All right, come on in. Where are you going to get the $500? I got 500. I'm going to bring somebody down from home. It's going to be the rest of the money. Good. We locked him up for bribery. So I've been locking up for people bribery for my whole life, right? There's no big deal. But it was just kind of nice because he thought he could just walk away and tip us with $500. The next thing is I'm back in the Fort Apache with the TPF because we had to back up the cops because they were very outnumbered. And I'm on patrol, and the corner of Westchester Avenue and Fox Street is notorious for prostitutes. The trains, people get all this prostitutes. So I'm out there looking, and of course I'm looking at everybody. All of a sudden I see this white girl. Well, she don't fit in because everybody else is black and Hispanic. She looks young. So I said, pull over here. Let me talk to this girl. I said, what are you doing? She said, oh, sir, I'm just walking. I'm just standing here. I said, listen, you're a prostitute. How old are you? She goes, 15. 15? I said, how long have you been here? I came in last night. I was picked up by this black pimp in Manhattan, and this is only my second night, and I'm scared to death. I said, well, you ought to be scared to death. I said, get in the car. She goes, thank God. I was praying that somebody would come to my aid. Precinct notified social services, brought her downtown, saved another girl. And that was a good feeling. And then in between stuff like that, on patrol, you see a lot. I see this black woman with a baby. She's trying to hail a cab and she's holding the baby. She's very upset. I just pull it real quick. What's going on? My baby's not breathing. We get the baby breathing, put her in the baby car, race to Lincoln Hospital. We saved the kid. This is the kind of things that we do, but people don't see that, right? We're a badass TPF, but we're also the good guys helping the decent people out. So that was a good one. Now it's more. I'm sorry.
Just before we get to hearing about what happened in March, I'd be curious to know that how do you deal with that then? You're doing everything, like you say, you work for God. You're doing all the things for the right reasons. Some of your fellow officers are doing things that will tarnish your name, whether they're in sergeant clubs or otherwise. There are always a few bad apples that will spoil the bunch. So,
they're not in the tactical patrol force.
No, I believe that. No, I do. I believe that. But, how do you balance that, though, when you're doing the right things and you're helping people out, and then you're hearing the stories about the police and you see people's opinions about the police? How did you balance that out?
Well, it's disturbing and it bothers you. And believe me, you hate to have somebody who's doing something. But it's how we behave. They were officers. I had good people, and it's upsetting when you see something bad happen. But with us, it's like, I'll give you an example. We go into the precinct. There's good cops in the precinct. They don't want to be part of the bullshit, but they have peer pressure, right? We come in there and say, listen, we can't hit that place over there on the pier. I say, no problem. We'll be there. TPF will hit it. So we would come in. We'd upset the people who were doing things wrong, they hated us, the cops, the other cops. They hated us. They don't give you a fuck. 30 days, we jump around. Nobody would know where we are. It was really effective. And that's why I got to be a detective so quickly, all right? And even as a sergeant, I'm doing the same thing. Now it's March 1st, okay? And again, we're in Fort Apache, 4-1 precinct. And we're sitting in the car listening to the radio, and we're having a cup of tea, just relax. And all of a sudden we hear bang, bang, bang. Car comes racing down the street right past us. A son of a bitch. Out the window goes the teacups. We're in a chase. We put it over the radio. This guy's trying to get away from us. Away. We both ran up. My driver ran to the right. I ran to the left. I literally pulled the guy out of the window of the front seat. I just yanked him out, took his fucking gun, smashed him to the ground. My officer did the same thing. And later on, the cop was funny. He was funny. He was telling people, he says, this guy, this Sergeant Geberth, he's like some sort of super cop. We're on patrol. Next thing you know, we see something, grab him, you know. So what would happen is I would have to keep changing drivers because I would keep making arrests. Well, Joe was a regular sergeant's driver. When I first got there, he had been there for about, I'm going to say 5 years. He remembered me when I was a cop, right? He had like one little medal, right? By the time I finished 1 year later, he had 3 EPDs, 2 meritorious, and a commendation. He says, Geberth's going to get me killed. But, you know, it was all good. It was all good stuff.
Incredible. So while we're talking about medals then, for those watching on the video, we can see that you've got, you know, I know it's not your full allotment that you do have. Can you talk us through the ones that you have there on your chest today?
Well, these over here are the higher awards, the commendations, and that involves, remember narcotics, the shotgun shootout, and the kilos, and all right, that's from that. The impersonators in Harlem purporting to be police officers, and that's another commendation. The guy tried to shoot us and his gun didn't work. The bullet had a bad climate. Yeah, and then of course, you know, you remember the Little Italy car chase, the diamond merchant, right? And that should have been the Medal of Valor, but instead, you know, Geberth has charges. So, you know, I got over 65 awards in my career. And, well, you know what it is? It's important because today, with all my academic credentials, 2 master's degrees, a fellow in the Forensic Academy of Sciences, and all these other things I have, that's all well and good. But people should know that he was the real deal before he became an academic. He was an active cop. So when I talk police talk, I talk legitimately. It's the truth.
Yeah.
So now it's March 13th, right? I get a call from 2 of my cops. There's a man holding a baby with a machete. The wife ran from the apartment. He's going to kill my baby. He's going to kill my baby. I said, all right, let's go. I run over there. I get to the location, and this guy is holding the machete to the little baby's throat, and he's a psycho. I can see by his eyes. I said, get the woman away. Get the cops out of the place. I want 1 cop standing behind me. Have your gun ready. I have my gun out too. I go to the guy. Look, I'm putting my gun away. All right? Let me talk to you man to man. Why do you want to hurt that baby? And I'm talking and I'm talking. As I'm talking, the machete comes down. I grab to the machete hand, the cop grabs the baby, the rest of the cops pile in, and we take him down. We saved the baby's life. Now, I could have shot him. You know that. Yeah. I mean, I would have hit him. I couldn't miss. I could have put a gun to his head and blew him away. I'd rather not. I mean, maybe somebody else would have done that. I thought if I could talk to him and get him, I could get him. And it worked. So it was effective.
So whatever happened to him then? What was that guy's punishment?
He got jail time because he had domestic violence charges against him. He was out on bail for domestic violence. He got 4 or 5 years, okay, for attempted murder, which is not much, but it's the Bronx. You know, that's better than nothing. So not to take a break. It's now March 10th, and I'm back and forth Apache with my driver, and son of a gun, people say there's a fire in the building down the street. Look down the street, you can see it's a 12-story building, and the 6th floor, the flames are shooting out the window. So me, my driver, and the cop on the post, I said, let's get the people out. Let's transmit an alarm for the fire department. We tell someone to stand by the box and direct the firemen when they get hit. We go in there. Well, let me tell you something. We got to the 6th floor. There was no way we'd get into that apartment. That's how bad it was. We're evacuating people. And all of a sudden, while we're evacuating people, there's a backdraft. And a flame and smoke come down the hallway. My driver jumped in the elevator, which you're not supposed to do, but it was a good escape route. The other cop ran into the apartment with the evacuee and put towels down. I'm evacuating somebody and say, listen, hold the door open for me. I want to find out where my cops are. He panicked. The door shuts. Can't see a fucking thing. I've been a volunteer fireman. The first thing I do, I get down on the floor and I'm breathing somewhat cleaner air than what's upstairs. The fire department basically pulled us out. We all had to go to Jacoby Hospital. We all got smoked. But we saved a lot of people, and it was written up, and there was another award. Okay? So we don't stop. And now it's again, May 13th, and I'm back in Fort Apache. It seems like I'm in Fort Apache a lot. But I'm back in Fort Apache, and it's a wild Saturday night. It was May 13th. I'll never forget. You could literally feel the street, the heat and the tension, the bongos, the noise, the screaming, nonstop. All of a sudden, we get a call. The fire department's requesting assistance. They're at 172 in Seabury Place, and they're taking debris from the roof. So how'd they get there? Well, the gangbangers, ghetto entertainment, get the garbage and light it up to make the firemen come. So they got a fire going. The fire department comes to extinguish a fire. Now they're trapped as the stuff's coming off the building. So me and 2 squads, we run in there. We take to the roofs. We clear the area, get everybody out. And I talked to the 4-1 sergeant, that's the patrol sergeant. I said, listen, I says, we don't want anybody in this area. This is obviously a problem. The trouble with Seabury and 172nd Street, it's a V formation intersection. When you bring the ladder truck in, they have to maneuver to get their ladder truck and their engines out of the corner. So the fuckers know this. So when 7:30, they start putting in calls. Man with a gun, police officer needs assistance, right? So I get to Central. I says, Central, do not send any units. Those are false alarms. Me and the patrol sergeant are here at the scene. Do not send any units. So I'm saying, that's something that you're trying to bait us. So what I did, I was little. You're not supposed to do this, but I'm Vernon Geberth. I could do whatever I want. I'm working for God. I notify Central as the TPF commander at the scene. That's higher than a sergeant. And I request helicopters to come and light up the roof so we can chase these gangbangers out. And sure enough, about 8:30, the helicopters come in. And the spotlights looked like something out of an action movie. It was really wild. They're getting off the roof, and they hang around for half an hour, which gave me time to send my people back into the building, up the fire escapes, and control all exits, and wait till 11:30. We call for the helicopters to come back. When the helicopters come back, they try to get away. They run right into our arms, and we sentence them on the spot. Nightstick justice, and 3 of them are under arrest. Why? They were preparing Molotov cocktails with rock salt. So when they threw the Molotov cocktail, the rock salt would split out and stick onto the people. So now I call the bomb squad, because technically they're bombs. Commanding officer of TPF at the scenes, please send the bomb squad. All of a sudden, this captain comes up from Manhattan. Where's the lieutenant? Where's the captain? I call for this. I says, there ain't none. Who called him? I did. You did. Now, the news media picks up on this. It was like something, news media, bomb squad, helicopters, right? So the news media calls up and I'm going, yeah, well, let's entertain. Oh, yeah, they came through a building repelling the DPF. We're laughing our ass off thinking. The next day, I get called down to the commanding officer's office. I'm not laughing anymore. What did you do? So I explained why I did it and why we needed the helicopters. And you want to know something? As a result of that action, they gave authorization to the patrol sergeant on the scene to call special operations to send helicopters if they needed it. Oh, wow. So I set a trend. Yeah. That was pretty wild.
And that's making a difference as well, isn't it? That's out there.
Yeah, and it was very effective. I mean, let's face it, they've been talking about it for a long time. Now, and again, we're back on making arrests, and we're back on control the street. It's now June 1972, and we're supposed to go off for training. Now, if you remember from the last podcast, TPF was always going for special training, and tonight's training is going to be building assaults and how to get people out of the building, the bad guys, and this and that. And we're going to go to a place out on Far Rockaway. Now, what had happened back in the day, this guy, Robert Moses, this big builder, he was constructing these buildings to kind of move the poor population out of Manhattan, out to Queens, to Far Rockaways. The concept was good, except they ran out of money. So what they have is they have a bunch of abandoned buildings that were never finished. And surrounding the buildings is all a ghetto area. So the police department was using the buildings as training. So the object was to go in and get the bad guys out of the building. But the trick was to try to get out alive. And you're not going to get out alive because the firearm people knew exactly what they were going to do. So when we go there, I did a little homework. I found out from the people who went before what the procedures were. I says, okay, we're going to do it differently. We're all issued blank ammunition because you're going to have actual firing to make it realistic.
Okay.
The bad guys are in the building. Now, the firearms unit, these guys are in the building. They know the building like the back of their hand. We don't. There's no lights. We got flashlights. What they do is they secrete themselves in different apartments. And as the cop would walk by, they come out, bang, 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 you're dead, right? I said, we're not going to do it that way. I got my hands on about a dozen cherry bombs. What we're going to do is we're going to go into the building, and before we cross the empty apartment, we're going to throw a cherry bomb in. Boom! They came running out. What the fuck? Bang, 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 you're dead. So we basically, I did something completely off the wall. Today I would have been arrested. They would have given me charges. But you know something? The bottom line was it was so effective that later on they're going to start using percussion grenades when they do raids. And that was, so maybe I invented the percussion grenade. I don't know, but it was pretty effective. And I got called downtown to the headquarters again. It was pretty funny. So the boss said to me, you know, Geberth, you're always doing something.
Difficult times, they call for difficult measures.
Yeah, and and tactics. The person who changes their tactics, improvise, right? Adapt, overcome. That's what we did. Right? They weren't prepared for that. So now it's June. So now I'm back in the Bronx, and again, the Savage Skulls. These are the people that were involved with the helicopter thing. There was a number of gangs in the Bronx: the Savage Skulls, the Savage Nomads, the Ghetto Brothers. These gangs terrorized the people. But the Savage Skulls, we had a lot of trouble with them in Fort Apache. And when cops would make an arrest, they would attempt to take the prisoner back. They would surround them. They would attack the cop. I'm saying, I think it's time for a wake-up call for the Savage Skulls. So I came in that night with a plan. They had taken over this basement apartment on a building on Intervale Avenue in the 4-1 precinct. And they basically terrorized the superintendent. And the building, people who lived in the building were scared to death of them because they were gangbangers. I said, I'm going to give them a little surprise. Now, technically, they don't have a right to be in that building. So they have no expectation of privacy if we hit their club. But legally, you got to be on legal grounds. So I says, okay, what we're going to do at a certain time, we'll notify the precinct and put them on notice, okay? At a certain time, we're going to come racing up to the building and we're going to take out the lookouts because they always had lookouts. Take out the lookouts in the street, knock them down, and we're going to breach. And we breached the clubhouse with sledgehammers going right. Took them completely by surprise. Zip guns, narcotics, weapons, all kinds of shit. Meanwhile, they would wear these colors like they were important. They had different ranks and stuff. I line them up. I tell them, you decommissioned. I cut their ranks off their fucking jackets. They went fucking batshit. I says, no, you're fucking nothing. And you want to know something? We're a bigger gang. We're the Tactical Patrol Force. Our gang is bigger than yours. All right? You're done. You come back to this building, you're going to get fucking hurt. Right? I marched them all out, all daisy chained together. We had a paddy wagon pull up. Right? I forget, 28 of them, all in cuffs. The people in the building were clapping for us. So what they did is they were still getting upset about how they were decommissioned by the detective sergeant, by Sergeant Geberth. And so they made a complaint to the Civilian Complaint Review Board that we cut their jackets. I said, no, we didn't cut their jackets. We removed the insignia. And I remember Sterling Johnson was the commander chief of the Civilian Complaint Review Board, and he knew who I was because I had an active career. He says, they said that you ripped their jeans. I says, listen, Commissioner, do you ever see that jeans commercial from Levi's and you have the 2 sets of horses trying to pull the jeans and they don't rip? I said, we couldn't rip their jackets. I says, I decommissioned them. He says, congratulations, charges dismissed.
I like it. I remember that commission. Oh.
Yeah, that was very effective and it was kind of neat. Now it's July, and I talked to you before about the Summer Olympics. There's always a riot that we have to respond to. Well, sure enough, it's July. I forget, it's 1972. I forget the date. But we have a riot going on in Brownsville in Brooklyn. It was at Utica and Atlantic Avenues. And they were calling for a rapid mobilization. So the TPF unit in Manhattan, TPF in Brooklyn, TPF in the Bronx responded. And so you remember how we respond with the 2 cars in the front, 2 cars in the back, the big green and white black bus, and woo, woo, coming in. And then as you come in, we shut the sirens, just a boom, 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 like the Roman legion coming in. We come in, and it was a deputy inspector there, and he's shitting in his pants because he wants to get promoted to inspector, right? He doesn't want an issue. Listen, I've got to mobilize. If this crowd's out of control, and we got to protect the business and storefronts. They're going to get looted. I said, look, take care of everything. Inspector, I says, I'm going to take a look at what's going on. So I go up to the roof of the building, and I'm watching this riot. And this riot, they come forward, and when the police come, they go backwards. But who's behind it but 6 little bastards, right? They're the ones instigating the crowd, throwing shit, and the crowd's in front. So they're in behind. I says, I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to take a squad, and we're going to outflank them. I go around, we jog down a block, we come in behind the riot. I said, when I give the signal, you come forward. Sure enough, they come forward, the crowd comes back, we come the other way, and we grab the 6 perpetrators with our V formation. They come in, we take them out. End of the riot. No more riot. It's condition corrected.
Crazy.
So it was very effective, and the inspector was very happy that we didn't cause much trouble. And we went back to the Bronx, where we continued doing what we do best, locking bad guys up. So, anyway.
Yeah.
Gotta wet the whistle.
No, that's absolutely fine. That's why me and guys always have a beer. It's not because it's a beer-themed podcast. We just like to have a beer to keep the whistle wet.
Yeah. No, now it's, was it August? Yeah, August. Okay. I've been in TPF now since September of 71. And unbeknownst to me, they're looking at me for a heavy-duty major investigation that's being conducted by the Organized Crime Control Bureau. My inspector in the Tactical Patrol Force, Dan Courtney, was recommending me. I didn't know this at the time. But it's a hot August night, and we're on patrol with my driver, my regular driver. And we're in the area of the 4-3 precinct at Watson Avenue and Bronx River Road. And we see a couple of civilians in distress. You know how when you're familiar with the street, you can tell when someone needs help.
Yeah,
they're in distress. They've been robbed at gunpoint by 2 or 3 people, and they're really hysterical. And so, listen, you just got robbed. Where'd they go? They went this way. All right, so get in the car. We're going to see if we can find them. Well, sure enough, we're cruising around, and all of a sudden we see 2 of them right outside this junkyard. And now we know they're armed, right? Because the complainant said they had guns. I tell my driver, I says, when we pull up, because we have a marked car, we can't hide. When we pull up, let's see what happens. As we pull up, they split into the junkyard. My driver goes in one way, I go in the other way. And he ends up, the guy turns on him and fires a shot. And now he's coming my way. He comes with guns up. I fire a shot at him. He throws the gun into them. And we get him down. But I hear a splash. The other guy jumped into the Bronx River. Now, that's not a good thing because that Bronx River is a bad place. There's a lot of shit in the river. And I don't know what was going to happen to him. We never found him, by the way. We had a call for emergency services, and we called for backups, and we found the gun. We had the gun. We had the guy under arrest. He was identified by the complainants. The guy that went to the river, I don't know where he is.
Are you saying that he might never have got out?
I'm sorry?
Do you think he may never have got out?
Well, he may have gotten out, but we didn't see him. I don't know how he got out. I mean, it's you got the big barges over there, and you got all kinds of stuff. The body never came up, so he must have maybe he escaped. I don't know, but that's a good thing. The guy under arrest is really a bad guy. The guy under arrest was wanted for homicide by the 7th Homicide Zone. Later on, I'll be going to the 7th Homicide in about a year or so. You remember that podcast? I do. And the 2 detectives that made the arrest, they'll be working under me in 2 years. So it's kind of a small world. But that's going to be another commendation. That one, okay. So that was pretty neat. And next thing I know, I'm getting notified to report to the headquarters, the Organized Crime Control Bureau. We're going to be about to be involved in one of the biggest mafia investigations in the career of the city of New York.
Wow.
So I hope you have some questions, because I'm
No, I'll sum it up by saying that you clearly enjoyed your time working as a street cop in TPF, sorry, and as a squad sergeant in this gung-ho unit. Vernon had the opportunity to restore law and order in many crime-ridden neighborhoods. He also had the chance to teach and instruct others. TPF cops had to utilize his learned tactics and strategies. And to be honest with you, you know what I mean? We love having you on the podcast, and we love listening. I could literally, sometimes I forget that I'm supposed to be speaking at points, because I just love listening to your story.
I talk for both of us.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I need Gaz along to interject sometimes, because he likes to talk for the both of us too, bless him. So just out of interest then, so taking you back to your time there as a TPF sergeant, and prior to that, as a sergeant beforehand, how difficult a transition was it? I know you're saying detectives make good sergeants, but was it a difficult transition?
For the ordinary police officer, I think it is a difficult transition. But detectives are in a position of directing people higher than them at the scene of a homicide. Plus, they interact with other agencies. So it gives them a whole different level of communication. Plus, you know people differently. They say the patrol guide is like, some people are very anal. The patrol guide, they think that's the gospel. No, it's a guide. Okay, it doesn't tell exactly what to do. You have to use your head. All right, not everything's written down. You couldn't possibly write everything down. But I think that my development as a boss really took place even at that precinct level, because I was doing things that were out of sync. Okay, and they weren't used to that. But it established my reputation as a no-nonsense supervisor. I wasn't going to tolerate any kind of criminal activity or any kind of nonsense. But by the same token, when I'm in the street with my cops, later on, my detectives, I made sure I was there to protect them. And not only was I leading them, but I was protecting them, instructing them, and showing them how it had to be done. I think that maybe 2 or 3 of those things I did, like calling helicopters and bomb squad, I think that was so out of sync it wasn't funny. And as far as the percussion grenades, that was hysterical, because let's face it, every unit that went down there was technically killed because they got shot by the firearms unit. They never expected to get blown up themselves. So
Right.
it was a piece of work. It really was.
So when you're pulling stunts like that, are the guys around you looking at you? Can you read on the expressions on their faces, literally saying, "What the fuck is this guy doing?"
Yeah, exactly. It's Geberth. It's Geberth. That's it. There's no other explanation. And that's why I wore these things today, because that's from being active in the street, taking chances, risking my life, right? Protecting my troops as I risk my life, but also giving good direction. And it formulated my style for later on, because now I'm going to go into major investigations. And that's a whole different level, a whole different learning curve. We're not on the street anymore. We're doing heavy duty investigation, and how to conduct those and how to deal with those people. So, I always learned every assignment I was in, I learned something and I took it forward. All of these skill sets. Okay. So when I did do something, I had a frame of reference. I could explain why I did it. I was able to articulate why I didn't follow that particular protocol, because it didn't work. So
it's pretty obvious that you enjoyed the excitement of what you're doing, but at the same time, it's also really, really clear that you're level-headed and intelligent, and there was forethought into everything that you did. It wasn't just craziness for the sake of doing something hectic. It's there to get the job done. It was planned and premeditated.
Yeah, it was done. It was done with a passion, but it was also done carefully, because I was fully aware of department protocols and what I could do. And sometimes I pushed the ticket a little bit, but it was to get the job done. It was never done vindictively or to hurt someone or to embarrass someone.
Oh,
Right.
no. I get that from you, to be honest with you. Like I say, any man who says that he works for God, then the reasons are just, and we understand that. So when
I, sorry, I believe that.
Oh no, I believe it too. But my question is then, so in terms of when you're telling these stories, and we've asked you in the past, does it take you back to that moment? And it does. Do you miss the action? Do you miss the excitement?
Oh, I certainly do, but I've reached that magic number 80, okay? A man's got to know his limitations. I could never do what I did, but the memories are fantastic, and they're very fulfilling, because even today people are talking about how I commanded, what I did, and it's nice to hear from people I work with. And
Oh,
this podcast gives me an opportunity to relive these events. I don't want to bore my wife to death telling her war stories.
I'm sure you do both.
No, we don't do that. We talk about other things, like what she's going to cook tonight. Important stuff.
Well, I've seen the stuff that you share on Facebook. She looks like she's a very good cook.
Oh, I tell you, she's a chef and a half. It's unbelievable what she puts together. And I have to go to the gym every morning, otherwise I'd weigh 300 pounds, for God's sakes. I like to eat, But anyway, the important thing is that the first time we met and we with that podcast, we had to kind of breeze through this stuff. Now we're getting into the nitty gritty of what that was about. And again, I do believe that I'm working for God, that I was cloaked in the armor of God to protect me. I do believe that God got me through these things, because I went through some really, really scary stuff. Pure of heart, okay? Not for my ego, not for myself, but to do the right thing. And I kind of believe that I was protected. And that's why I go to church every Sunday and I pray every night. And I pray for my family, my kids, my grandkids, and my grandkids. And I pray for my brothers and sisters that are out there trying to do the job today under impossible conditions.
So yeah, one of the things I have to say then, like you say, you talk about cloaking yourself in the armor of God. When you look back on those situations, you put yourself in peril, and you put yourself right in the line of fire at times. There, but for the grace of God, do you ever look back on those times, and do you ever think, I was probably a little bit gung-ho that time? Might have taken things a bit too far.
Yeah, there were a couple of times I think I bit off more than I could chew. Just a perfect example were those characters impersonating detectives and doing stick-ups in Harlem. If that primer had worked, I would have been dead. He fired the gun. You could see where the pin hit the primer. It didn't go off. I mean, think about that, how close I came. And in those days, we didn't have bulletproof vests and stuff. We're out there like, wear regular clothes. So, yeah. And shotgun blast, I'll never forget that. Oh. And of course, we returned fire and we hit nothing because we were scared shit. So,
yeah, no. It's funny enough. My cousins told me about he put me through firing drills when we were in Texas, not proper ones, but how to shoot a gun and what have you. And one of the things he said in one of the videos you watch is two guys firing at each other in a lift. A police officer and a bad guy, and not a single bullet lands because they're literally too busy trying to duck down and actually rather focusing on where the gun's going.
But when you're aiming at a target, you're taking your time, you're lining it up, you're lining the sights, you're pulling the trigger softly, right? And you fire. In combat, you don't have that luxury, okay? Those bullets are going all over the place. I've been in shootouts and nobody got hit, all right? And it's kind of scary when you have a 6-shooter and you ran out of 6 bullets. That's it, I always carried 2 guns. I always had an extra backup gun, and sometimes I had 3 guns, okay, depending on what I was going into.
It sounded like you needed it in quite a few of those situations. So Stuart, who's a regular watcher and listener of the podcast, he's been watching tonight. So hello, Stuart. Thank you for joining us. And he wanted to know, did you ever come across any famous people while you were a police officer?
Well, in the Bronx, not really, but I did come across some characters, famous or infamous, one or the other, huh? John Gotti. No, with the famous people, in Harlem, famous people are singers. And I'll never forget, I was working as a detective one night in a 2-6 squad, and the uniform brought in 5 people in a stolen car. And they were the Orlons. They were a group that I knew from when I was a kid. They were singers. Well, they hired a car to drive them. They didn't know the car was stolen, so I got them. I said, no, they're released. They're not under arrest. The driver's under arrest. I remember they gave me autographs. So, Detective Geberth's the best. Yeah, because it's the right thing to do. But as far as really famous people, vicariously, I met President Trump's father, Frederick Trump, when I was a detective sergeant. And he wanted to make an offer of a reward for the capture of 2 people, one person who had mugged and almost killed a Catholic nun. And I went to his house and met him, and I set it up that he could make the offer for the reward. And basically, we have to take care of that right now. And that's why I have the phone over here, because I thought, sure, somebody's going to call. They're more marketers looking to sell me something. Okay, goodbye. You're done. So what happens is that we never made the arrest, but he made the offer, and I did a 1-page, basically a business law agreement too. And it was about 7 or 8 years later, maybe 10 years later, Donald Trump wanted to do the same thing. So he called up to make a reward, and he went through the legal division, all right? And you go to the legal division, you get a bunch of eunuchs, all right, looking for precedent and this and that. And all of a sudden, I'm already retired, and I get a call from this pencil neck from the legal division. By whose authority did you offer a reward from the city of New York? I said, you ever hear of business law, you fucking moron? This is an agreement, 1-page agreement. They were going through all kinds of stuff. So basically, that's if you want famous people. But in Manhattan, I would have met famous people. But I'm a ghetto cop. I'm in the Bronx.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you've shared that story of Donald Trump's father, funnily enough, when we covered it off. Yeah, it's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
But we are round about the hour mark now, so that's where we like to wrap these episodes up. So before we go, I need you to give a shout out on some of your books. Tell us a little bit about those and where people can pick those up online.
Well, my Godfather book is on Amazon. It's my legacy book. It talks about how I got to be where I got. A lot of the stories we talk about on the podcast are in that book. My textbooks, of course, those are. You see this one? It takes 2 hands to pick it up. It's 1,229 pages. This is the Bible of homicide. This is the one used across the world, and I'm pretty proud of it because I spent my entire life working on that. Those books are too expensive for the average person to buy, but in law enforcement, that's the kind of book you want to have on the counter, all right? Because you can go and see the procedures you should do and different crime scene scenarios. But my life's an open book. I'm online. I don't do Instagram or X or anything like that. But I do Facebook.
I do, and I do enjoy seeing the things that you share on there as well. And I will say to people as well, pick up the Godfather book as well. I'll stick a link in the bio to the audio version of this episode because it's a fantastic book. It really, really is. I don't have it to hand right now. My copy is. I've left it upstairs. Annoyingly, I normally share it out on the video version of the podcast. But yeah, it is a fantastic book, and in itself, it's a pretty weighty tome. I can't remember how many pages there are, but
it's about 500 pages, I think. I don't know. I didn't put everything in there. I get more in the podcast to talk about it, because I'm kind of like reminiscing and remembering things. And, when you're writing formally, you don't put everything in because you can't remember it. But this was an interesting podcast because it lines up with the other 2 we did before that. So that's very good.
It is. And at some point, I think what we'll have to do is get them all on one and just do sort of a really, really lengthy podcast, put out the ends and start on me saying hello and goodbye. And just let it all run through for about 10 hours. And if you want to do it, then why not do it? If you got a Sunday afternoon and morning to spare, you might just enjoy it. So Vernon, sorry, Karen. I was just going to say thank you very much. I'm sure it won't be the last time we're going to record an episode with you. I'm sure we'll be arranging one in a couple.
I think there's something else. I just like I say, this was a kind of an action-filled one, and I just want to say I want to give a shout out to my brothers and sisters in the NYPD. God bless them. And as far as us, I appreciate the opportunity and thank you. All right.
Vernon, it's always an honor and it's always a pleasure. I look forward to the next time that we sit down and record. But for now, I will wish you farewell and thank you again for joining us. And we'll be back next week when we'll be talking about, you know what I always say, something completely different altogether. So thank you and take care. 10-4.
Friends around the mic, kicking back, alright. Day turns into night, podcast in the spotlight.